As millions of us prepare to participate in the fun of Halloween, few will be aware that it first originated from the Celtic fire festival, Samhain. Samhain was the division of the year between the lighter half, summer, and the darker half, winter. The festival of Samhain marked the end of the Celtic year and the beginning of the new one, and as such can be seen to the equivalent of New Year's Eve. The Celts believed that night preceded day, so the festivities took place on the eve of Samhain. Turning points, such as the turning of one year into the next, were magical events. And at this time the division between this world and the other world was at its thinnest. It could be said that time stood still on this night, and the implications of this were immense. During the night, the natural order of life was thrown into chaos, and the earthly world of the living became hopelessly entangled with the world of the dead. But the world of the dead was itself a complicated place, peopled not only by the spirits of the departed, but also with a host of gods, fairies, and other creatures of a certain nature. The unwary traveller caught away from home on this night could expect to encounter any one or many of these creatures, and it was always advisable to stay indoors. Ghosts were everywhere. The family ancestors were honoured and invited home, whilst harmful spirits were warded off. People wore costumes and masks to disguise themselves as harmful spirits and thus avoid harm. Bonfires and food played a large part in the festivities. The bones of slaughtered livestock were cast into a communal fire. Household fires were extinguished and started again from the bonfire. Food was prepared for the living and the dead. Food for the ancestors who were in no position to eat it was richly shared with the less well off. When the Romans conquered the Celts in 43 AD, they brought their own ideas on how to celebrate and exorcise the dead. They had two festivals, one called the Ferella and one Lemure. The Lemure was celebrated on 3 days, May the 9th, 11th and 13th, because these days were considered unlucky. It was also a festival for the dead, but honoured the Lemures, or the more dangerous spirits of people who had died violent and untimely deaths. At midnight on the last day of the Lemure, the Roman pater familias, the head of the family, would wake up, put on special clothing. He had to be barefoot. He would then put 9 uncooked black fava beans into his mouth and spit them out as he walked around the house, saying with each one, "With these beans I redeem me and mine." When all the beans had been spat out, the paterfamilias cleaned his hands and said 9 times, "Ghosts of my father, be gone." The pagan festivals of Samhain among the Celts and the Lemure among the Romans were eventually co-opted by the Catholic Church. In 1609 AD, the Pope rededicated the Roman Pantheon, the temple to all gods, to Christian martyrs, and made May the 13th the final day of the Lemure, the feast day of all martyrs. More than 2 centuries later, Pope Gregory IV expanded the festival to include All Saints as well, and moved it to November the 1st. Eventually, the new Christian festival supplanted the Celtic Samhain held on the same day. November the 1st became All Saints' Day, and November the 2nd became All Souls' Day, with All Hallows' Eve preceding them and incorporating many of our traditions of Samhain. People have been making jack-o'-lanterns at Halloween for centuries. The practice originated from an Irish myth about a man named Stingy Jack. According to his story, Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him. And through to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for the drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it into his pocket next to a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back into his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year. Should Jack die, he would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. While he was up in the tree, Jack carved a sign of the cross into the tree's bark, so the devil could not come down until the devil promised Jack not to bother him for 10 more years. Soon after Jack died, as the legend goes, God would not allow such an unsavoury figure into heaven. The devil, upset by the trick Jack had played on him, and keeping his word would not claim his soul, would not allow Jack into hell. He sent Jack off into the dark night, with only a burning coal to light his way. Jack put the coal into a carved-out turnip, and has been roaming the earth ever since. The Irish began to refer to this ghostly figure as Jack of the Lantern, and then simply Jack-o'-lantern. The history of bobbing for apples is connected with the Celtic belief in divining the future. When the Romans conquered and controlled most of Britain, they craftily blended the Roman festival of Pomona and its associated customs with that of the Samhain festival. The goddess Pomona was thought to be extremely beautiful and also very fertile. The apple was thought to be symbolic of her. The Celts believed that the pentagram symbol was also a symbol of fertility, and this belief happened to coincide with the fact that when one slices open an apple, its seeds form a perfect pentagram. So the Celts took this to mean that the use of the apple was an ideal method to foretell and determine who would and would not be married in the upcoming year. Some believe that the concept of bobbing for apples actually started out as a European ritual for courting. The ritual played out like a sort of dating game, in which the girl tried to bob for an apple that symbolised her beau. If she was successful on her first attempt, that meant her relationship had been written in the stars all along. 2 tries meant the relationship wasn't meant to last, and 3 times meant, well, don't even try. As we already know, the Celts believed that as we moved from one year to the next, dead and the living would overlap, and the demons would roam the earth again. So dressing up as demons was a defence mechanism. If you encountered a real demon roaming the earth, they would think you were one of them. As for the trick-or-treating or guising traditions, beginning in the Middle Ages, children and sometimes poor adults would dress up in costumes and go around door to door during All Hallow Mass, begging for food or money in exchange for songs and prayers, often said on behalf of the dead. This was called souling, and the children or adults were called soulers.
A soul cake, please good missus, a soul cake. Apple, a pear, a plum or a cherry, or any good thing to make us merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all. The lanes are very dirty and my shoes are very thin. I've got a little pocket I can put a penny in. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you. A soul cake, please good missus, a soul cake. Apple, a pear, a plum or a cherry, or any good thing to make us merry. 1 for Peter, 2 for Paul, 3 for him that made us all.
As we know, It was believed that on Halloween night, the dead returned as ghosts and they could walk amongst us. That is why symbols of death, like graveyards, haunted houses, skeletons and ghosts, are eerily symbolic reminders of the other world, death and human mortality. The spider is a powerful and ancient mythical symbol. Because they can spin webs, they are associated with magic and the supernatural in many folk stories. They also can be linked to danger, fear, ensnarement, and deception. If you think of the phrase, to spin a web of deceit. Bats have long been associated with mystery, evil, and death. They're only active at night, plus they tend to live in caves, which evokes the underworld. One theory for the link between bats and Halloween has to do with the festival of Samhain, when the Celts celebrated the end of the harvest on October the 31st. They would light bonfires to keep evil spirits at bay. This practice would attract insects and in turn attract the bats. The witch is a central symbol of Halloween. The name comes from the Saxon Wicca, meaning wise one. When setting out for a Sabbath, witches rubbed a sacred ointment into their skin. This gave them a feeling of flying, and if they had been fasting, they felt even giddier. Some witches rode on horseback, but poor witches went on foot and carried a broom or a pole to aid in vaulting over streams. In England, when new witches were initiated, they were often blindfolded, smeared with flying ointment, and placed on a broomstick. The ointment would confuse the mind, speed up the pulse, and numb the feet. When they were told you were flying over land and sea, the witch took their word for it.
We are safe now. The spirits have flown. All you have left to fear is your future unknown.
The connection between black cats, witches, and evil goes way back. In medieval Europe, it was a common belief that the devil could turn himself into a black cat. During the witch hunts, accused witches were frequently found to have black cats as companions. The colour black is often associated with death, bad luck, mystery, and evil, so it's no surprise that the black cats have become objects of superstition. With their glowing orb-like eyes and pitch-black fur, they add a spooky flair to the Halloween imagery. It's nearly time to go now and bid you all good night. But I can't let you go without getting a little fright.